Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's time for yet another movie review. Now before I get into the subject of today's review, I would like to point out this moment in my Texas Chainsaw Massacre review. Incidentally, if you do want to submit a request, stop it, turn away, I ain't about that life, don't even think about leaving a comment with a request. I would also like to point out this comment.
Great video, dude. I would like to request a movie, Jason X!
For fuck's sake, Ryan, did you not listen? Look, I might as well not even try and fight it, okay? If we're friends and you've got some requests, bang them in the comments section. I may not do them, it depends, but ultimately there's no stopping the tide. So today I'm going to be reviewing the 2002 sci-fi slasher movie, Jason X. The film was written by Todd Farmer, directed by Jim Isaac, and it stars Kane Hodder for the umpteenth time as the iconic Jason Voorhees. The plot this time around essentially concerns Jason. The decision is taken to freeze Jason Voorhees. They've tried executing him multiple times, it's never worked, so let's just freeze the fucker and see if anyone can work out a way to kill him in the future. Unfortunately the cryonics go wrong, and the doctor who in charge of the freezing ends up frozen with him. The pair end up frozen for over 4.5 centuries, and they're eventually found by a group of explorers. By this time Earth is no longer habitable. This scouting party have found the Doctor and Jason and have taken them onto their ship to try and unfreeze them. Of course, the ship is mostly staffed by sexy young people who take every opportunity to run off and fuck. This angers Jason, who awakes from his deep cryonic state in order to kill them all. I mean, it's hard to kind of break a movie like Jason X down into positives and negatives. Obviously, the easy thing would be to say it's awful, which it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean to me that there aren't good things about it. I mean, I'm going to put my sort of my cards on the table here. I'm not the biggest Friday the 13th fan at all. I actually think it's quite an overrated series. I don't understand why it went on as long as it did and why people talk about them as much as they do. I mean, the good film to bad film ratio in that series is staggering, frankly. But ultimately, I do see the appeal of the Friday the 13th movies. I can see that people are interested in seeing Jason go out and kill. You know, he obviously, you know, the foundation of this series is really creative ways of Jason committing murder, and he does some pretty damn creative ones in this installment, man. The famous frozen face that you smashed, that's really cool. To be honest, anytime that the effects are practical, the kills are great. Anytime there's CG, they're terrible. Which kind of gets me into my next point. This movie looks like puke. From a visual point of view, in terms of the CG, this is like a Sci-Fi Channel original movie. It's that kind of standard. And that kind of sums it up in general. If you want to look at the quality of the acting, the quality of the special effects, the quality of the story, the fact that ultimately the film kind of does know that it's stupid. This is the thing. This is the first time that the Friday the 13th movies really stepped back and said, okay, we realise that this is getting stupid now. The trouble is that it was kind of too little too late, because this series had been stupid for about 5 movies by this stage. Unknowingly stupid, you know. Now it just seemed like too little too late for me. Generally speaking, it's got to be said, as a functional script, it does work very well. I mean, ultimately the story is fairly practically put together. I mean, in terms of the kind of the development and the characterisation, the pace is really good in this movie, it's got to be said. What I've got to say is definitely the worst part of this movie is just how bizarrely coincidental everything is. For some reason the fucking Colonial Marines are on board this ship, just hanging out waiting to shoot shit. There's no real reason for that. This is a research ship with college students on it. Why is there a full fucking faction of the, you know, intergalactic armed forces just hanging out on board? That seems pathetic to me. That really needs a lot more explanation. This is one of those movies that kind of uses the, you know, my big problem with a lot of science fiction, which is ultimately that if there's a problem you can just magic it away with science, you know, and there ends up being no real plot, you know. obviously a big part of this is obviously the nanotechnology thing, which I know is sort of based in an idea of reality, but ultimately it ends up reconstructing Jason in this sort of uber Jason metal thing, and it's just such a deus ex machina, you know. Ultimately everything feels like it's just there to advance the story. I mean, I can't really hold that against this film in particular, because that's been the case in how many Friday the 13th sequels by this point? All of them. And that's what the Friday the 13th movies are about. They're about seeing some TNA and then some killing. So ultimately, I don't really feel like I can criticise this entry into the series too much for being the way it is, because aside from the fact that it's set in space and looks visually quite awful, it's not that different from any of the other Friday the 13th movies. In fact, I've got to say, from the point of view of the kind of kills that are shown here, this is actually one of my preferred Friday the 13th sequels in that regard. Everything else about the movie is awful, don't get me wrong. So overall, I'm going to give Jason X a 5 out of 10. A very well put together script and a nudge nudge wink wink to a camera, along with a couple of quite well put together gore set pieces, do not a good movie make. A lot of people will tell you that this is the worst Friday the 13th movie. It's really not. That's the Jason X review for you, ladies and gentlemen. Please do leave a comment, like, subscribe, tell me what you thought of this video. There will be a link to my podcast, Ironcast, in the description. I'd really love for you to go and check it out. That is ultimately where most of my energy is focused in terms of creating content. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time, ladies and gentlemen.